have nepotism before, we certainly have it right now. So hello everyone, I'm Laura Kornhauser. I am the CEO and co-founder of a company called Stratyfy, and I'll be talking to you today about how you build AI you can trust.
So topic for today is how you build AI you can trust. As I mentioned, I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Stratyfy. We build predictive analytics solutions and decision optimization solutions for banks and insurance companies. So we are very focused on the topic that a number of people have brought up today, which is how to properly price the reduced risk that I think everybody in this room believes exists, even though we may not have the data yet to support it. How do we effectively price that into things like insurance policies and other things that face consumers to make those prices more accurate and hopefully reflect the reduced risk? And how can we, if my dad's vision of the future is accurate, and I think he is fairly visionary, as many of you probably agree with, or you wouldn't be here today. How can we also then help with funding of those potential policies and those potential technologies that ultimately make everybody safer and all of people's lives better? And how can we get to that future funded by someone, maybe insurance companies, maybe CEOs? So first, to start with the topic of how do you trust AI? I think first and foremost, when discussing AI, we need to first level set and talk about what is AI. Everybody in this room is likely familiar with the topic because it is extraordinarily relevant to AV. But first and foremost, let's think about, okay, AI can be a very broad church and refer to a whole bunch of different things. When I'm going to be talking about it, I'm going to be speaking about more advanced AI solutions that are often more, if you will, black boxy. Than fully clear to the users using them. Though again, it comes in a whole variety of shapes and sizes. I will also chat a little bit about what I think those solutions need to have in order to allow you to trust them as the user, why that is hopefully important, and then some thoughts about how we get there. Not surprisingly, you probably won't be surprised at Stratyfy. We provide explainable AI-based solutions. So if you will, we open up that black box and allow people to get in and impart their own expertise into how those systems work, in addition to value-based extraction using AI-based methodologies and the data. Awesome. Thank you so much. Great. On the extra microphone. So first, because I was going to wait for the nepotism joke for this slide, but I'll do it now. So I was Orphe here at Princeton, graduated in 2003. So then I was basically studying statistics. Then if you put a frame on statistics, you get to machine learning. There we go. And now, because I'm talking about AI, it's appropriate that I be in front of this big group chatting with you all. A meme that's made its way around the internet quite actively, not really exactly correct, but I think represents a lot of the fear that people have about AI-based solutions, which is extraordinarily important as we're thinking about how do we allow people and humans to trust these systems. If they fear them, they will not trust them. We can move past this because I think everybody here understands this concept. Let's start to talk about the impact and how it relates, of course, to AV. The promise of AI is huge. Again, I probably don't have to tell people in the room of this promise. Its ability to transform traditional industries and bring new opportunities into the market is massive. Depending on which consultancy you want to quote, the opportunity in the next 10 to 15 years is hundreds of billions of dollars or trillions of dollars. And it's across different sectors, but of course AV is very high up in the opportunity set for this technology. And of course, the responsibility that comes, because with great power comes great responsibility, which many people quote to Uncle Ben, but it also came from this lovely man as well and a few others before him. With great power comes great responsibility, so the importance of building an AI you can trust is paramount right now. And the fear of AI is very real with people. I mentioned it a little bit before. A lot of people think AI looks like that. If you're an 80s movie fan, you might think AI looks like this. Or even like this if you're a believer. We all know that unfortunately 80s movies are not accurate representations of the future, because otherwise 2015 we would have had flying cars that would have been really awesome. Back to the Future predictions, but unfortunately we're not quite there yet, but we're getting there closer. So how do we help address this fear? How do we help make AI more, if you will, comfortable for people and more trustworthy for people? Because ultimately, you can't make it trustworthy, we're definitely not going to be able to use the full benefit of this technology, especially in autonomous vehicles. So let's first just talk about what is trustworthy AI. What does that mean? The EU recently released some guidelines in December at the end of last year, and the US actually just put out for a call for RFIs for proposals that the NIST will review to also adopt similar or new accountability and if you will, standards for how AI technology should be used in the States. First and foremost, it should be lawful, is what the EU came to the determination of. This was after various meetings with countless AI experts. They came up with 3 key principles and 7 ways to get there that we'll talk about in a second. So first, it should be lawful. I think everybody would agree here. Next, it should be ethical, right? This gets a little bit more tricky. What is ethics in AI? What is ethical AI? How do you address things like bias in AI to make sure it's ethical, if you will? This one's a little bit fuzzier to get to. And then also that it's robust is the third important tenet that the EU came to for these guidelines for AI. Robust from both a technical perspective, but also taking into account things like social environment. So how do we get there? How do we achieve these things? And what really matters to get here? What matters, and many folks have spoken about it already today, what really matters is transparency. With transparency, one can gain understanding. With transparency, one can also assess fairness through understanding how exactly algorithms are working, and I think very importantly, having the ability to also change how those algorithms are working to do things like compensate for poor or missing data that we just don't have. Unfortunately, in this particular use case, we just don't. Well, David and others are doing wonderful work to start gathering said data. The data doesn't necessarily exist or is not at least readily available to many participants such that people can go out and just build models purely from data. Models need to be built from a combination of both data and human expertise and human intelligence. The two have to be brought together. Again, not to mention a Stratyfy plug, but AI meets IQ is our tagline. This is what we look to try to do for folks, but many others are looking to do this as well with their own approaches. The importance is you have to have the human in the loop checking, if you will, what the machine is learning and correcting what the machine is learning to make sure that you're moving forward with in the best path possible. So with these three things, I believe that trust is possible. If you have the transparency such that you can gain the understanding, such that you can ensure things like fairness, we can reach this, if you will, lofty goal or lofty bogey of trusting our AI systems. So I'll walk through each of these briefly and then get to the tenets that have been put forth by the EU that I think reel back nicely into these elements. So first, transparency. Not going to be a surprise to anybody that's read recent headlines or not so recent headlines that the black box does not work. Black box does not work. A black box system, even if it is trained on a ton of data that is extraordinarily representative of not just what happened in the past, but also what will happen in the future, black box doesn't work. I think anybody here that has worked with data can join me hopefully join me at least in the view that no data set is complete. No data set is complete, at very least. That data set is backward looking and not indicative of what will happen in the future. A number of examples have been brought up today, just with the way that consumers may change their behavior due to AVs being out on the road. If all of a sudden people become more aggressive at how they step in front of a vehicle, how does that change this whole situation, right? So we will never have this full data set from which just learning based on what the data has and spitting out similar kinds of patterns will work in this application or in many others in my personal view. So we need to open up this black box. One, we need to do that, as I mentioned, for better predictions, but we also need to do that to ensure that the way the black box is working meets our business objectives, risk tolerance, and also doesn't end up unfairly impacting certain groups of people as many more black boxy algorithms have done. You don't need to look far past recent headlines on Facebook and the billions of dollars that has cost them, or other related news out of Amazon, problems with their hiring algorithm. This impacts folks across different use cases. It's not just a situation for AVs, and it impacts situations that have much
more robust and reliable data than is present in this particular environment. So transparency is huge. With transparency and opening up this black box, you can get towards understanding. Understanding an AI decision-making, as PwC has outlined here, requires transparency, explainability, and provability. Without these, you cannot really understand the way a fundamental system is working, and then you can impart your own beliefs on how you should change how that fundamental system is actually working. And then third, if we move on to fairness, this is where we really get into the importance of iterating and testing your models to check them for bias and having a really robust process around the AI technology you're using in the AV world or in any world, such that at various points in time you are checking and rechecking and tweaking and tuning those models to find various things that may come up. And this is how you really ensure that you do not have bias creeping or seeping into your models in ways you don't want it to. Of course, everybody wants to build a model with a good kind of bias, right? We want models that correctly identify that that is a person on the side of the road, and not a plastic bag. We want models that correctly identify these types of things and are biased in that way, but we of course want to avoid unwanted bias and unfair bias from creeping into models. And then I'll just wrap up by talking quickly, again on the why now. There was a recent bill proposed in Washington about a month ago called the Algorithmic Accountability Act. It's still just a bill. Again, as the Washington folks in the room know a lot better than I do, there's more wood to chop before this bill becomes law. But I think it's really a sign of the growing need from consumers to understand how algorithms that make important decisions about their lives work. And it's a sign that lawmakers are paying attention to that and starting to put in legislation that helps with that. We've seen it in other parts of the globe. It's happening here in the US. I personally believe that things like AV are going to be very much at the front of this discussion because it's one of, again, any decision that is important about people's lives. I think everybody would agree. Safety is one of the most important decisions in people's lives. Explainability and understandability will be absolutely paramount, such that we can build these systems in a way that actually moves the world forward. And last, I'll just throw up the 7, because I promised to get to them, but don't want to go over. The 7 guidelines put out by the EU around the use of AI across different use cases. So this is across use cases, they put it out. And again, I put this down to human agency and oversight is really about understanding, having humans understand the way the machine is working, right? So you can empower humans to have their say in it as well, if you will. Combine the data insights and the human insights. Technical robustness, you need something that's resilient, secure, accurate, and reliable, and reproducible. Extraordinarily important for AVs. Privacy, again, I won't get into that. I think we all know the importance of that. Transparency, we've talked about a lot. Diversity, non-discrimination, and fairness. Really want to remove, again, that unfair bias from any models. And then, of course, important societal and environmental well-being. No place is that more important than in AVs, and making sure that this technology is actually moving us forward as opposed to introducing new risks that get everybody's fear monkeys jumping around and overly concerned. So thank you so much, everyone, for the time. Please feel free to reach out for any additional information. Hope to see you later at the